Hi, everyone. We are here today with the first of a series of interviews that we're going to be doing with several of our Calvary missionaries and mission organizations. So my hope is that through this series that you will get to know better the organizations and the ministries that we partner with and support, and also that we'll be able to hear more about what's going on around the world during these unique times. So I'm very excited to introduce to you today Luke and Jamie Ulrich, who are missionaries in Malawi, but are currently home right now and staying on campus at our 507 Ministries home. So to give you a little bit of background about our partnership with Luke and Jamie, one of our philosophies at Calvary, as we're trying to figure out where God would have us to put our resources and our time and who to partner with, is that we really try to keep our eyes and ears open for what God is already doing and where he's moving in the hearts of our people. And so a year or two ago, over the course of several months, I had 3 different people in our Calvary family talk to me about this missionary couple that they knew in Africa. And it took me a little bit to put together that they were all talking about the same couple. But once I realized that, and once we learned more about what they were doing, it just seemed like the perfect fit for Calvary to come along beside them and support them with prayer and financially, but also we sent a team. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. So before we get into what you're doing in Malawi and why you're home for a while, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your kids and just kind of let us know about your family.
Sure. Luke and Jamie, we were in college together at Illinois State University, and that's how we met and ended up getting married after college. We now have 3 children. Our oldest is Mark. He's 11, almost 12 years old. Our second is Miriam, adopted from Bulgaria. She's 11, just turned 11. And then Aaron, our blessing of 3 years old.
All right. And can you tell me a little bit about what life was like before you went to Malawi? What were you both doing? And what made you decide to become full-time missionaries, and maybe how you chose to go to Malawi in particular?
So it was a very long process of prayer. Just, God, what is the next step that you would have us do? And through that prayer, God led us towards missions, and I ended up going to a missions conference and said, okay, God, there are 640 different agencies here, and we don't know where to go, what to do. We believe we're called to work with children in Africa. Help us out. And he led us to an agency called Global Teams, which works with unreached people groups all around the world. It puts teams from around the world together to work with these unreached people groups. And God said, go to Global Teams. And we were originally slated to go to Kenya. And in 2015, there was some things that happened in Kenya that we realized that Kenya was not going to be as safe as we thought it was going to be for our family and the location that we were going to. And so Global Team said, we have a position for you in Malawi. And so that's how we got connected with Malawi. And then later in 2015, we headed there.
Jamie, I know, what were you doing before you guys went over to Malawi? Because I think you were working at Elston, which is a church right here in town.
Yeah, I'd been working at Elston Family Church as the children's pastor there for about 8 years. And then we also had a daycare at the time. And so I was helping part-time there. And so I loved what I did. And so the calling is a little different. He definitely got it before me. And so when he said, this is what we want to do, I said, but I'm happy what I'm doing here. I love what I'm doing. God gave me a mission. He gave me a calling. And so, but then one day the Lord said, I just want you to do the exact same thing that you are doing at Elston. I just want you to do it in Africa now. And so it's been so neat to see how he has molded some of the visions and how a lot of the missions that he gave me here, I've just transferred on over. And right now, I've been able to do an interim pastor, children's pastor position in Malawi. And so that has been really neat for me.
That's really cool. And what were you doing before, Luke?
I was working at YMCA Camp Tecumseh up
Oh, okay.
Brookston, Indiana. So I was actually in the outdoor education department, so the school groups coming up to camp. And I did that for 13 years, and then I worked at the pool during the summer.
So do you guys have any family that are missionaries, like parents, brothers, sisters, or are you the first ones in your family?
We're the first ones.
Had you ever been to Africa before this?
No. Well, our exploratory trip to Kenya, but
Okay.
before we got our calling, no, we had never been to Africa.
Wow. That's cool. So I know you explained about global teams and why you chose global teams. What would you say are one or two of the main reasons why global teams seem like such a great fit for you? I know you've shared that your heart is really with unreached people groups.
Yeah, the unreached thing was definitely a big factor. And like I said, it was really just prayer. And God said, go to global teams.
Go to this one, yeah.
Yeah, but I think some of the things that drew us in, it was a little bit smaller agency. And so they were very personal. We knew the North American director, she was there at the conference. And so that was able to give us the personal connection with the agency. And that really drew us in. And then the unreached people groups, the groups that had no significant movement of Christ within the whole people group really kind of caught my attention.
Okay, so that actually leads into, can you describe the community in Malawi where you are right now?
So we do, we kind of have 4 different ministries that we work with in Malawi. Also nice that because we have a little smaller agency that we can do a lot of different things. And so one of the ministries that we do is I go to, I have a women's Bible study that I do in one of the villages. And so that has been really neat because it wasn't actually one of the things that I felt called to or thought that I was going to do. You're going to hear me say this several times throughout what we talk about. But we felt, so the Lord just said, I want you to do a women's Bible study here. And so we started out with 8 women and it stayed that way for about 9 months. And then I actually felt like, I don't think I'm going to continue this. And one of the women was like, no, you have to keep coming. And so it's amazing. On a weekly basis, we probably have an average of 35 people, women that come. And some weeks I have 60, 65 women that come. I've been able to hand out a Bible to almost every single woman that comes. And so it's just been really, it's been so sweet to see of how these women that didn't know the Lord, didn't love Jesus, how they love Jesus now and they're trusting him and they're a community and they've even started a bank there and now they're providing for themselves. And in this season where there's so many people that don't have enough food, they've been able to plant and harvest. And so it's been a really neat thing that God has just kind of led me through. Another one of the ministries that we do is we have developed a curriculum, a children's curriculum for one of the local churches in town. Whenever we went and visited the churches, they said, we don't have a curriculum for the children. We just come every week and then the next person comes and there wasn't a set curriculum. So again, it wasn't something that we set out to do, but so I have I have a 6-month curriculum. And so now I'm working on the second half now. So that's been our year this year has been really finishing the curriculum and then training the churches and getting the churches the curriculum and training the teachers and seeing what they're doing with it and contacting them. So it's been a really neat part in that ministry. And then another ministry that we do is at a local orphanage. And so they have some programs to where the kids come and do a preschool in the morning, and then they have an after-school program. So I'm kind of the educational director there, so I help out and I help give them supplies, and I do some teaching and just kind of help the educational part of that program and teaching and ministering of those kids there.
And that program a few years back lost a huge portion of their funding, and so we said, what can we do to assist? We don't have the amount of money that they lost to give you. There's no way we can do that. So we actually started a small business making sauces and then selling those sauces to support the orphanage, and now has become an orphan care center. It doesn't provide everything they need, but it has the potential to get there, and it is filling in a small portion of that gap.
Yeah, and that's a great model for helping equip people to take care of themselves in a sustainable way. So that's awesome. So just out of curiosity, when you guys moved to Malawi, what are some of the things that you found as a family to be the biggest adjustments, or what were things maybe that surprised you that you hadn't thought about before packing up and moving to another continent to become missionaries?
We're going to answer that question, but there is one more tier to our ministry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, we do lots of different varieties of things.
Yes.
But the true global team side of our ministry is working with an unreached people group down near Lake Malawi.
Okay.
And that group there was already a children's ministry going on there. And there are several leaders that were doing the ministry and had hundreds of children coming to their ministry every day. And we said, wow, these people are doing an amazing work for God within a people group that is unreached. How can we support you? And so we went down and got to know them, built a really tight relationship with the leaders and with some of the kids. And that is the place that we're focusing a lot of our energy on. We've bought a portion of property that we're hoping to build kind of a community center, a home to where the kids can come and do different activities and know that they're loved by the ministry leaders, but also loved by God. Mm-hmm. And so long-term, we hope that turns into a big place that these kids can come and learn vocational skills, learn all sorts of different things, get medical and clothing and their needs met, so that they know that we love them and that God loves them at that location. And so we've got lots of big dreams and hopes and plans for that. Right now, it's just a small plot of land, about 1 acre, and we've got a toilet.
Toilets are good. Yeah. Was that our team that helped put in a toilet?
Yes.
Yeah, and Calvary actually helped purchase some of the land. And when the Calvary team came, this is the area that they were at most of the time, of helping them with presenting some like older kids activities there, and they got to do a big Christmas party that the kids wouldn't have been able to have if the team wouldn't have come. So that was the big place where Calvary helped us out, and it really helped the ministry. They're like, we're so happy about this.
The toilet or the ministry?
Both. The ministry, both.
Yeah.
So your question was, what was some of the adjustments when we first came to Malawi?
Mm-hmm. And how long has it been since you went?
It's been 4.5 years.
Okay.
So a lot of these things were such a shock when we first got there, but most of them we've adjusted to at this point. One of the big things for me was the time, because there is like really no sense of time there, and everybody is late. And the other thing that was really hard for me was like, they'd be like, we're gonna do this tomorrow, but that doesn't really mean tomorrow. It may mean 5 days from now. It could mean never. So that was something that was really hard for us to understand. So we've adjusted to that now, but being a very controlled and time-oriented person, that was very difficult for me.
That would be hard for me. I'm a planner, so
yeah. Of no sense of time. Another thing that was hard for me was just the amount of physical labor when we first got there. We didn't have a washer, so I was hand washing the clothes all by hand, and my hands would break out with blisters. Like I had blisters all over my hands the first week I was there, because we're just not used to doing that physical amount of labor that we do in Malawi. And so in having, like, we have cement floors, so I had to mop the house every day. And so with taking care of the kids, that was an overwhelming thing that was really hard when we first got there.
Yeah. obviously moving to a different culture, the language is something that you have to adjust to. We're still learning the language. We've got to where we can understand the general gist of what's going on in a conversation, but to be able to carry on a full conversation is still slow at best. So,
and the name of the language is?
Chichewa.
Yeah.
That's the one they use throughout the country, even though there are 14 different tribes and 14 different languages. That's the one that is throughout the country. And then moving away from family was incredibly hard, to just a few hours away from them to being 8,000 miles away. And especially with this COVID, all of a sudden we couldn't even get here for a time period. It was just shut down. So that was a big adjustment to be that far away. It's not just hop in a car and go. So that was a huge adjustment. And then just the conveniences of the US. You go to the store and you buy a meal and you pop it in the microwave. You can have, for really cheap, a whole meal for your family. Where there, everything is from scratch. And so if we wanted some food that was similar to the US, we would have to figure out what the ingredients were. And they're more expensive because the stuff that we eat is not the stuff they eat in Malawi. And so it would have to be imported, and the fees just go up from there. So that was a large adjustment that we had to make, was our food and our budget food, so that we could feel comfortable.
So now while you're home,
there isn't water and electricity most of the time either. So that was a huge adjustment.
That's a huge adjustment. So now that you're home for a little bit, are you just like eating everything in sight that reminds you of being home?
Sometimes, yeah.
But it actually overwhelms you too. Like the first couple of days when people brought meals, like I was like, I have to give this away. Like I kept calling people, do you need food? Because it's overwhelming to have so much food when you're not used to having it, or not used to having very much. So it's been a better culture shock, but it's still a culture shock.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So just as a little fun thing, what would you say is like one, like maybe favorite food that you can't get there, that when you knew you were coming back, you were like, I can't wait to have this?
There are so many that we have. Mexican is one that we right away realized they don't have Mexican food in Malawi.
That's surprising.
So we actually take it with us.
Wow.
So
okay.
We did taco mix and some things with us. And pork is another thing. Pork meat is very difficult to find something that's similar to American sausages and things. So that was two of the things that I found difficult there.
I actually haven't had them yet. I forgot. I should have, but mozzarella cheese sticks was one of the things I was like, I have to have when I get back. Actually, I haven't had them yet, but
like the fried ones?
Yeah, the fried ones. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll make sure you get some of those.
I'll find some somewhere.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm from Canada, so when I go home to visit my family, there's several different kinds of junk food, snack food kind of things you can't get here. And even though I don't eat a lot of junk food in America, when I go home, I'm like, oh, I have to, I can't usually get it. So tell us a little bit about the church in Malawi. What would be the main religion, and how many of the people in your community would, what kind of religions do they follow, or no religion? What's it like there?
So in the region that we're at, the central region, there are two main tribes within that region. And one of them was very similar. Their culture was very similar to Christianity. And so it's estimated about 50% of them are Christians. And there's so many different denominations that have come in. And so we see a lot of Pentecostal churches, Presbyterian, Baptist, Anglican, Assemblies of God. There are just so many. And then the other tribe is the tribe that is 98% Muslim, and less, like 0.5% is Christian. And so those are the two main tribes and the religions within those tribes. We work with both, but there is a difference between the tribes because the cultures were so similar to one of the religions, and so they adopted those religions within their tribes.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned earlier about COVID. Obviously, that's a global pandemic. So when did you start seeing things change there, and how is it affecting your Malawi home compared to what's happening in America right now?
I think when the U.S. started getting more protective of, oh, it's here, and doing the protective measures and things, Malawi started going, okay, something's happening and we need to take note of that. And so the information just started to go out about that time when the US was kind of in full force. And so the thing that has changed the most is there are now hand washing stations everywhere. And so out in front of the grocery store, out in front of the market, the open air market, there's stations where you can grab some water, wash your hands, and some soap nearby. The hard part is the culture. Washing hands is very difficult to do with soap. And because for them, the poverty is so deep that the choice between soap and food is there. And so they obviously have to sustain themselves. And so it really affects the culture because of the poverty, and the people live also day to day. And so they go out and they sell something for that day so that they can eat that night. And the government threatened having a shutdown, a lockdown, so that no one was going out and doing their business. And the people were like, we're just going to starve. It's not possible for us to do it. And so things have gone back and forth politically, and there's a lot of political tension over a lot of things right now in Malawi. And so this has created some tension as well. But I think they've come to an agreement that the lockdown is not going to be complete, but they're going to just have a few more measures. The gatherings have been limited. A lot of the churches have split their services into multiples so that there are fewer people at the services and things like that.
Okay. So you're home on furlough, and for those who aren't familiar with missionaries' time at home, that's what we call a furlough. So how long are you here for, which I know things are a little hard to predict right now, and what is it that missionaries do when they're home on furlough? What are you guys going to be doing?
So a question with that, I think that's good to know, is that, so our country, there's no airplanes that are coming in and out of that country since April 1st. And so we actually was so privileged to be able to take a flight out, and it's been the only flight out. And then there's no other flights in. So at this point, we can't tell you an end date. We're hoping and praying September, but we just are we cannot go back into the country until the airports open back up. So that's actually really difficult when you leave your home and you're not sure when or if when we're going to be able to go back to our ministries and to our homes. So that's something that we're kind of struggling with. But in furlough, normally we visit with lots of different people and lots of our supporters and lots of our friends. So again, I was going to say, if anybody wants to outreach to us once things open back up or do Zoom calls, we love doing that. We love telling people about what we do here in Malawi. And then we have lots of church visits that we do. We have right now 10 sponsoring churches. So every single Sunday we go to a different church. So we go to a different church and we kind of tell them what we do, and we wear Malawian outfits, and we speak the language, and we just try to tell people a little bit about what we're doing there in Malawi. So.
And I should say this was a planned furlough. Like, you all were planning already on coming back and had already been working with the people in Malawi for your absence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's
that's got to give you some sense of feeling confident that things back in Malawi are being taken care of, because you already had worked on those things.
We only had to leave about a month earlier than we had planned, and we'd actually planned on this month to kind of be a month of writing curriculum. So it worked out perfect for us because we can write curriculum here. So we already had kind of transferred over much of our ministries and things like that, and put things in place for while we were gone. So that timing was good for us.
Very good.
And it's been 2 years since we've been home. So this is the longest time since of us not being able to see our family. So we're really grateful to be here right now.
And so just over like the Christmas, like January, February, you had a group come out from Elston, and then you had a group come from Calvary. And those are the first groups that have come out. Is that right?
Except for with the launch ministry, they actually had some college students that came in the August before. So they all kind of have to do with the Lafayette area. So we've been very grateful to have our first mission trip. So yeah.
Well, hopefully that's something we'll get to do again soon in the future. So as we wrap up, I would just love for you to be able to share with our Calvary family, what are some very specific ways that we can be praying for you, be praying for the people in Malawi, and just ways that we can be supporting you while you're home and then in the future as you return back to the mission field?
Mm-hmm. The prayer requests within Malawi, obviously, pray for our ministries. Pray that the people are open to the gospel, first and foremost, that hearts would be changed and lives would be changed to follow Jesus Christ, because there's no greater joy than to see people come to an eternity with Christ. So you can pray for them, especially in our absence. Most of our ministries, we are very much supporting what's already there. And so it's just easy for us to have that continue while we're gone, but continue to pray for them that they can continue on their own and have their own support systems while we're here. Malawi as a whole, pray for their political situation. As we mentioned, there's some large tensions. There was an election that got nullified and the new one is coming. And so you can pray for that tension that's there politically. As the COVID is going around, we expect COVID, I think there's 41, 42 cases today, and we expect it to spread rapidly based on what we've seen in other places. We don't know, but that's kind of the expectation. And because of the culture, it's going to be hard to control. So you can pray for that. And then something that I always ask for prayer for is their rainy seasons. We just came out of a very good rainy season, and they're drying their crops right now. But I always start now praying for the next rainy season, because the whole well-being of the people in Malawi is based on whether they have a good rainy season or not. And so I start praying for the next rainy season as soon as the last one is finished.
So some things for us personally is just to pray that this time is nice and relaxful. Because of some of the political tensions that have gone on this year, it's been a very stressful year for us. Not really knowing what was happening day by day. We've been locked in our houses a lot this year, not just with COVID, but with other things. And so it's actually been a very tough and strange year for our ministry. So just pray that this is a good time of refreshment and relaxation while we're here. For family, to continue to pray for just our kids, because it's a tough transition. Our kids have very good friends in Malawi, and so just really pray. And our daughter, it's really difficult for her with some of the anxiety things. And then also to pray for, we have a property that we are hoping to maybe purchase, and so just pray that the doors will open up, that property will be able to be open, that we can purchase that soon.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share with us more, and I will link in the comments your blog and things like that so people can follow what's going on while you're home, and then also once you go back. So we will keep everyone posted on how Luke and Jamie are doing while they're home, and we encourage you to follow the Malawi Calvary Facebook page that we have, where we post prayer requests and updates, and just want to invite you to join them in prayer, or if you're more interested in talking to them about becoming a financial partner, I'm sure they would love talking with you. Or if you want to learn more about what it looks like to be called into full-time missions on the mission field, I'm sure they would love to share their experience with you on a more personal level too. So thank you guys so much. And I think we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Thanks.
Thank you.